You're muted.
Thank you, Kyle. The PowerPoint that's behind me, I know it's kind of backwards. So I will share the PowerPoint. I didn't do it this week because I want you guys to be into the lecture before I share the PowerPoint, because the content that I'm going to use is going to be used for the relational interviews. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So we'll go through kind of what's due coming back after Thanksgiving, and then we'll talk about what we're going to lecture on today, and then you'll see this PowerPoint later this week. Can you hear me now, Cecilia? Kyle, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cecilia, you can hear me now? Perfect. Okay, cool. Cecilia, can you hear me now? It may be the volume on your computer. Let me see. I'm the only one that can't hear you. It may be your volume on your. Okay, so any questions before I get started?
No.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So first off, I want to talk about a couple of different things in relationship to what's due the week after Thanksgiving. So right now, the only thing that's due this week is your skill assignment number 3. That is posted. You can turn it in at any time, but it's due by Sunday night. And then everything except for your movie test number 2 has been graded. So if you go into your Canvas and you look at grades, you should be looking at if there's anything missing. So for example, if there's something you didn't turn in, there was an assignment that you missed because you were out of class or whatever, you should be looking at that. You won't get full credit, but you should be seeing if there's something that you need to still get in to me. Because at this point, except for the movie test number 2, everything's graded. So it's kind of giving you a realistic idea of where your grade is. I will try to get the movie test number 2s graded by the end of this week. And then next week, you should be working on your relational interview. And we're going to talk a lot about that today in reference to things that you could be thinking about, reviewing and thinking about for your interview. So the skill assignment number 3, you all know how to do that. You've done it before. It is a 1-page paper. You do one of the skills that's listed there or more than one of them. You write about that experience of what you experienced doing that skill. And then you just talk about kind of what you learned. I have had 2 or 3 papers where people just kind of talk in general about what that idea is. So for example, if it's like be silent, somebody would write a paper about silence and what they think about, and they wouldn't do the activity of being silent. You have to actually practice the skill and talk about it. You can't just do a think paper about being silent. So just make sure that you're doing the skill that you're trying to perform. Now, for the relational interview, if you click on that tab, I've given you some samples of questions that you could ask your relational couples. I've also shown you some samples of papers that have been turned in that were A papers. And I encourage you to look at those, but you cannot use the questions that I post specifically. You could pick and choose some of them, but you can't just say, I'm going to ask all these same questions. What I want to see is kind of what questions come forward for you based on our lectures, things that we've talked about in the class. You can pick any 4 people, any 2 couples that you want. There are people that sometimes have more than 2 people in a relationship. So for example, I've had papers where there's a divorce or a breakup and they talk about that 3rd person that's still in the relationship in some ways. I've had other papers where they'll talk about they have an open relationship and they're managing how they have that open relationship. There's all kinds of different relational papers that I read. Some people do compare and contrast. Some people just don't even talk about the 2 and how they relate. They'll do 2 papers on one couple and 2 papers on another couple, and then they just staple the papers together and turn them in. However you want to do it is totally fine. But our lecture today really addresses things that you could look for as you do that paper. It's a 4-page paper. Please make sure that before you turn it in, especially if it's not double spaced, that you've checked to make sure that it goes 4 pages. I would suggest doing it in Microsoft Word and just sharing that file. That way you easily know whether or not it's hitting your limit of 4 pages. Don't just submit a single spaced text to the page requirement submission for Canvas, or you may not know if it's truly 4 pages or not. So that's one thing you want to watch for. Any questions about the paper and what's new or anything like that? For this group? Oh, okay. Well, let me fix these lights just so it's not so bright up there. You can see a little better. Is that a little bit better? Let's just do it like that. Okay, so the other paper that you could be working on is your movie paper. I have made that live as well. You could do that movie paper on the first movie we watched or the second movie we watched, or you could do it on both of the movies, or you can save it for the final movie that we're going to watch before the final exam. But the last movie that we watched really relates to kind of what we're talking about today. So I'm going to give some examples of some of the things that we saw play out in that movie, and kind of talk about how you might write a movie paper and how you might do a relational paper. So this chapter looks at the elements to a satisfying relationship. So if I was doing a relational interview, one of the things that I might try to figure out about my couple is what makes it work for them. So for example, one of the questions that I might ask is, what do you find as a successful element of a good relationship? I might ask things about what do they fight about? I might ask them, how do they resolve conflict? So all of those things are going to give me content to kind of write about what that couple's like. Obviously, I'm going to say, this is how long they've been together. This is how old they are. This is how they met, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to dive into what is the relationship like. So what is, in their opinion, the recipe for success? Some relationships I might talk to, and I may realize they're not in the best space. So for example, if I would have sat down with Pearl and Marty, at some point in that movie, I may have realized, wow, they've got some issues going on. She's having an affair. He's totally unhappy about it. He wants out because he feels like she's not appreciative of what he brings to the table. And that might have been playing into the relationship. So I might say, how do you guys deal with infidelity? Have you had infidelity in the relationship? So cheating in the relationship. But one thing I might look at is, what are the elements to a satisfying relationship? And one of the things that's talked about in the chapters that we have is investment. And so, for example, both of them felt like they were invested, but they were invested in different ways. So what would you think Pearl would say her investment was? What'd she give to the relationship? Huh? Time, but what kind of time? She was taking care of the kids all the time. She had his mom there that she was having to deal with. It wasn't like they were just on this family vacation and they were all 4 together as a couple and their kids. She had that element of, she was in charge of kind of taking care of the family. And that's kind of how he looked at it. Like, I leave and go off to work. So his investment was what? Time, but what kind of time? Taking care of the family, making the money, being able to support his family. And so, for example, one of their conversations was about, look, I go off and do this, and I thought you were happy. I didn't realize that you needed more or whatever. And in reality, in relationships, we sometimes define our investment differently. So one person might say, I provide for the family, that's my investment. And another person might say, well, I take care of the family, that's my investment. But really what you are trying to do is figure out, how do I give to the relationship and invest in it? And that other person is noticing it. So hoping that my investment is going to pay off. So for example, when Marty took time to take her out on a date, that's what mattered to her. It didn't matter that he showed up every week and here's the paycheck to buy the foods at the grocery store. She wanted intimacy in the relationship. And he wanted to have that spark in the relationship. He wanted to feel connected to her. And he felt like all she was doing is kind of taking care of the kids. And he's like, hey, I want you to look at me like you look at the blouse man too. So investment, that time and energy is important. So for example, you can ask your couples, Where do you feel like your partner's investment is? Where do they spend their time and energy in the relationship? So for example, one couple might say, oh, well, they work a lot, they provide for the family. The other person might say, oh, they take care of the kids, they really take care of our life and make sure everything's organized and good. And they might say, we spend time on our relationship. I had one couple that I worked with that they started telling their kids, you know, look, you weren't here before we were. And the reason that you're here is because we spent quality time together taking care of our relationship. And we want that relationship to continue. So we've got to spend quality time together. Go outside in the backyard and play and enjoy yourself and entertain yourself with your friends. But we need some quality time together. Now, whether or not they're going into the back room to make out, or they're just going to spend some time watching a TV show, I don't know what that investment looks like. But time together is an element of a satisfying relationship. So investment in the relationship. Number two is commitment. So for example, it was clear that Marty was committed. He was going off, taking care of the family, bills that they might have, or providing for the family. And her commitment now is questioned, mainly because she had an affair. And so part of what we don't know about that relationship, and what I talked about at the end of the movie, they may go off to that bedroom at the end of the movie, start making out, and he can't trust her anymore. He doesn't feel like her commitment's there anymore. It may be 3 months down the line, so they may be having a sparkle right now, but 3 months later, they're in a fight, and he just gets angry, and he's like, and you slept with the blouse man, because he doesn't feel like she's committed. So another element of a satisfying relationship is feeling like there's a commitment to the relationship. And, he made the statement of, you know why I'm happy? Because I knew I got the best thing right. I knew that I had successfully found the right partner. I had the best kids, and that's all I needed to get right. That's his commitment. That's what he's showing his interest is, or his focus is on. And obviously, if he was to start to analyze it, he would feel like she was not as committed to the relationship as he was. Another way that we might find an element to a satisfying relationship is trust. And so that element of trust may cause some conflict as that relationship goes on, because they may end up fighting about the fact that she doesn't trust that his focus is truly on having a more intimate relationship, or he might not trust her that she's not going to leave him again and have an affair again. So that trust element, I truly believe, is going to play in to the next part of their relationship. And as I've said before, I've had students that will ask couples about infidelity, and they'll say, have you ever had someone cheat in the relationship? And sometimes couples will be honest and say, yes, we did early on, we got through it. And students will notice in the nonverbal behaviors that one part of the couple was totally over it and moved on, but the other couple was still harboring some jealousy or some elements of unhappiness because of the lack of trust. So that could really play into whether or not they're truly satisfied with the relationship. And then the last element of a satisfying personal relationship is relational dialectics. And relational dialectics, in my opinion, are the most fascinating part of interpersonal relationships. Because relational dialectics give us clues to how we work in relationships. So for example, at the very beginning of the semester, when I gave you the syllabus, on the cover of the syllabus, there was a penguin and a polar bear that were dancing together. And I told you that I truly believe that that's kind of how relationships look. We are not the same people. How I do things is going to be different than how you do things. But what we're trying to do is work through life as a couple and not step on each other's toes too much, not invade or take over your independence, but to kind of dance through life, me meeting your needs, you meeting my needs, and we're trying to complement each other. Well, one way to know if we're going to be successful with that is how we manage relational dialectics. If we're not managing relational dialectics well, that's going to lead to feeling unhealthy or unhappy about the relationship. So we have to figure out what are those forces in the relationship that we've got to make sure that we're kind of teeter-tottering in a good way around. And there are different ones, and we're going to go into those next. So those opposing forces are what we work through in the relationship. So this is the definition of relational dialectics. It's the opposing forces. It's what I bring to the table and what you bring to the table. If I'm going to just be by myself, which, you know, sometimes as a single person, that feels good, man. I don't have to manage anybody else's stuff. I can do what I want today. I don't need to worry about what someone else needs or how they want me to act. That is not dealing with relational dialectics. But when I move another person into the relationship, I've got opposing forces that are going to be attention to what I might want in the relationship. And there are three different ones that we're going to talk about. The first one is the most common reason that early relationships break up. It's the number one reason. If you were to go to a college campus and you start asking people, what are you fighting about? What'd you break up about? The number one reason is connectedness versus autonomy. Connectedness versus autonomy. So autonomy versus connectedness are independence versus interdependence. And so what I want you to think about as I'm describing these two things is, where are you on this spectrum? And I'm not going to answer everybody that's online. I want you to play along. Let me see. Cynthia, can you hear us now? I got it. Okay, perfect. So I want everybody online to play along and everybody in the classroom to play along. I'm going to ask a question. I want you to just throw out your answer. And there's no right or wrong answer. I just want you to tell me what you really truly believe. But if I look at these two different ones, independence is a person that likes their space. Autonomy. They would be the person that at home in a relationship, they might like having a man cave or a woman cave. They like when they get to their space to kind of have some downtime. They don't need to be connected to another person constantly. All they're looking for is a little bit of disconnection, autonomy or independence, okay? The opposite side of that is a person who likes connection or interdependence. So that person, when they're home, is going to be the person that, if you're in the man cave or the female cave, they're wanting to be in that space. They want to feel connected. And the way they feel connected is by that physical connection with the other person, that physical location and being close to one another. So you have known me since August, okay, all of you. I want you to tell me, based on your opinions of who I am, if you had to put me in a category, either autonomy or connected, which one do you think I would be? If you had to pick one. No right or wrong answer.
I'd say independence.
Independence, I love it. What'd you say?
Oh, we want to say how you are?
How I am.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying.
Would you say independence? Okay, you cannot be further from the truth. And that should give you pause, because you've watched me. I mean, we've spent at least an hour every week together, and you're watching and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, what is this person? You're trying to really quickly put me in a box. And imagine you meet someone out, like, you know, going out one night, you start to go out with them, and you wrongly think that they're independent when really they like connection. So if you remember at the very beginning of the semester, I told you about my brother and how he was on the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning with his girlfriend who wanted to talk. And he was like, man, I just want to play Call of Duty 50 right now. And this girl's wanting to breathe on the phone. Which one was she? Connection. And which was he trying to be? Independent, exactly. Well, I am interdependent, connection. In the majority of my relationships, especially in romantic relationships, I want to be with that person all the time, okay? And I'll give you a perfect example. I started dating someone. We were together for about 5 years. We go to this conference. Well, I'm a student at Fresno State. We go to this conference together. We get off the plane at Fresno International Airport. And while we're standing at baggage claim, I say to her, hey, you gonna go to my house or am I gonna go to your house? And she's like, we just spent a week together. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, right, are you gonna go to my house or am I gonna go to your house? And she's like, Robin, I've gotta go to my house. I gotta go feed my dog. I gotta go check my mail. I gotta go, cut the grass. You probably have to do some of the same. You gotta check in with your brother. And I was like, did I do something wrong? Are you mad at me? And she's like, no, you go do your thing. We'll connect later today. And so I get my little bag at the airport. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And I like go out the airport like, well, I'm not calling you. And I start driving to the tower where I lived at the time. And I'm like, I am not calling her. She will call me before I will call her. I will show her. I got home. I cleaned the litter box. I checked in on my brother. And I was like, it's been about 30 minutes. I'm sure she could, be free by now. I'm sure she did the same thing I did. So I'm like, ring, hello? Hey, what are you doing? I just got home. Well, okay, well, did you take care of that stuff you need to take care of? Robin, I just walked in the door. I'm just taking care of it. Okay, well, whatever. I was just calling because I was missing you, whatever. And I hang up. Now, I look like a freaking stalker, okay? Weird. And the reality is I wanted connection, but what did I really need? What did I really need to do? I needed to give her space, but I needed space. And so what happened was we needed to dance through that, because if I didn't, I'm going to smother her. And people break up because they can't figure out that connectionness versus the independence needs to be like a dance. So I can't be in a relationship with someone who's connected like me, or we would smother each other to death. And I have had those types of friendships. So like I'll meet someone, they're like, okay, you want to go out to dinner on Friday night? Okay, you want to go to the movie on Saturday? Okay, what are you doing on Sunday? By Sunday, we hate each other, okay? Because of all of the connection. But if I have someone that I can dance through that connectedness and that interdependence, it makes it better. So for example, in your relationships, even with your parents or your friends or romantic people, there is one you are more than the other. And I want you right now to, for yourself, which one do you think you are? So if I was doing this, I would circle, I know I am connected. I like to be connected. And when I don't want to be connected, so for example, I married someone who is more interdependent. Why? Because opposites attract. And now it becomes hard for me. If I want to spend time with her, what do you think she wants? Space. And when I want space, what do you think she does? She wants to be together. So for example, it's a weekend, I got some grading to do. All of a sudden, when I go sit down with my papers and I'm starting to do something, it's like a cat. If you've ever had a cat before, you don't want to touch the cat, you're trying to read something, all of a sudden the cat wants to just plop right down on whatever you're doing. You get up and you try to go touch the cat takes off. I don't have anything to do with you. I'm busy right now. And in my own relationship, when I want space, Karen comes up, what are you doing today? Are you freaking kidding me? I was begging you to do something yesterday, and now you want to spend time together? Well, yesterday I was just doing my own thing. So we have to figure out how to dance through that, or what will happen. Exactly. If I get too much space, I'm going to get bored and go off. But I'll feel unconnected, and that will make me not want to be in the relationship. So what Pearl was looking for is she needed more connection from her independent husband, who was going off doing his thing. She was looking, the moment he said he was going to take her out on a date, she lit up. And part of what happened in that, they were sitting there and she's like, man, if you take me to this concert, I would just love that. And he's like, oh, Pearl, listen to the silence right now. She didn't want to sit and listen to the silence. She'd been doing that for weeks. She wanted to go out on the town and to go have a good time, but he was not listening to that. He was wanting more of that space and independence because he had been at work all week. He had been with people. He's looking for more space. So that dance, they needed to try to figure out how to do more succinctly. In my relationship interview, I might not even ask them. I might try to determine which one I think they are. Which one is independent, which one is connected. And I might see if that's one of the things that they fight about. So for example, asking them questions that might lead to those answers for me. Number two, predictability versus novelty. So predictable is a person, obviously, that kind of goes by a calendar. There is no guesswork on what's going to happen. Very, very predictable. They like a plan. They like to know what's going to be happening. And they go by that plan. A novel person more flies by the seat of their pants. They like something spontaneous and interesting and just, not planned out. And so an example would be a predictable person is going to be more planned out in kind of what they're doing for the week ahead. The novelty or spontaneous person is going to say, well, I don't know what, I'm not going to make any plans. I don't know what's going to happen this week. They don't have it all scheduled out. Now, which one do you think I am? Let's play again. Say again.
Okay.
Spontaneous, okay. Anybody else? Anybody think predictable? Did I throw y'all off with the last one? Now you're worried. Who would have said predictable? Raise your hand. Anybody? Oh, good. You think I'm novel? Yes, good. Because the truth of the matter is, in my relationship, I am the novel, spontaneous one. My wife is more predictable than I am. But that was on purpose for me. Because I don't like to have something sprung on me. So I like to be the one that's planning the novelty and the spontaneity. Now, if I miss someone who's novel and spontaneous like me, that feels like crazy and out of control. And I'll give you an example. So David and I are living together. First weekend, since he's moved here from Mississippi, he says, hey, let's go to San Francisco this weekend. And I'm like, okay, well, let me get my calendar. And I get my calendar out and I'm like, man, Friday night, I got a dinner with friends. And then Saturday, I'm going to Fresno State game. And then Sunday, I got church and I need to do some grading. Man, David, I'm not ready to go to San Francisco this weekend. And he's like, what? You are so boring. That's your schedule that you can't break up? I mean, can't you record the game and you can grade on Sunday night and tell your friends you'll meet them for dinner on Wednesday? I mean, you can't go to San Francisco because of that? And I said, David, I'm sorry, but I just don't, fly by the seat of my pants like you do. Now, in reality, I look very predictable, right? And I am. And really what's going on is I'm choosing not to be spontaneous and novel. My brother is wanting to be novel and spontaneous. And so like a month later, I get home and he's like, hey, Robin, what's going on? Let me see your calendar. And so he goes to my book bag and he gets my calendar out and he says, hey, I looked at your calendar and it says you're going to San Francisco this weekend. Look right here. And he just marked it all over probably the same kind of stuff that I had the month before. I'm still doing, but now it says SF all over the calendar. And so I laughed and I said, oh, David, you're funny. I said, okay, I'm going to fly by the seat of my pants. Let's go to San Francisco. So we left on that Friday. We go spend the night on, Union Square, go ride the trolley, go out to eat at Fisherman's Wharf, have a good little Friday and Saturday. And then we come back. And on Sunday, we're riding through Los Banos and he says, hey, he goes, it was pretty fun to fly by the seat of your pants, wasn't it? And I was like, oh, you're trying to bring up the fact that I wouldn't go before and now you convinced me to go. And he said, yeah. He goes, wasn't it fun just to not go by a calendar and drive to San Francisco? And I'm like, okay, David, I'll give you that. Yes, it was fun to be novel. But I know when your girlfriend's birthday is. I know when your anniversary is. I know when your financial aid check is going to be showing up. And I know when you need to register for classes. Do you know any of those answers? And he goes, okay, you got me. And in reality, what that means is, was he good for me? Was his novelty good for me to get away that weekend? Yes. Am I good for him? Yes. Because we dance between those two, and too much predictability is going to be boring. we're gonna be bored in the relationship. But too much novelty, we're not gonna be paying our bills, we're gonna get kicked out of where we're living. It's gonna be crazy because we're too spontaneous. And so I have been attracted to people that are very predictable because I like to know what's gonna be happening. And if I'm gonna throw something, like I might come up to my wife and say, hey, let's go to Carmel this weekend. And she thinks, oh my God, Robin is so spontaneous. She just all of a sudden said, let's get away for the weekend. She doesn't know that I've had it planned for months. Like I'm so predictable. It's been on the books. I've already scheduled it out. I know exactly what we're gonna do because I am more novel than she is. She is more predictable. But I like predictability that I can control. Does that make sense? If I don't know that about myself, and I start dating someone who's very, very novel, are we going to get in fights? Yes. Why? Why are we going to have arguments? You tell me. Huh? Why will, if I'm dating someone who's very novel and spontaneous, why would we have arguments and fights? It would be too spontaneous. I would feel a lack of control and overwhelmed. Just like the person that might feel smothered that I'm forcing myself on. Does that make sense? All right, the last one is private versus open. And so private versus open is a person that is, if I'm private, I kind of keep everything to the chest. I don't really self-disclose a lot. If we're fighting, I kind of work it through in my mind. I may talk to one other person, but I'm not like posting our stuff all over social media and letting God and everybody know Taylor Swift ended up. An open person, really wants to dialogue and talk about it. They want to express everything. They want to work through it. All of those things are going to be playing in to the relationship. Now, which one do you think I am? Like a book. Open, open, open. And so when we get in an argument, what do I want to do? Talk about it. Let's process it. And who do you think I'm attracted to? Someone that's more private. And so then I have to draw them out. And now if I force them to talk about it, that might create more of a fight, but it's also good for me to be in my mind a little and have to think about and process why we might be in an argument. So for example, let's say that you and I are going to Three Rivers for a holiday party, and we're driving up 198 up to Three Rivers. And while we're driving up, you're like, man, I don't know why they couldn't have done this in Hanford, gas prices right now. And why do we need to drive up there? Why couldn't we just done something in town? It'd been so much cheaper. And I'm like, oh, come on, it'll be nice. We get to see the river and, go up to the town, see what it's like since the fires. And you're like, yeah, I guess that's okay. And now we get to the house, we open the door and the host comes up. They're like, oh, hey, Robin, how are you guys doing? And I said, oh, we just had this drive up from Hanford. And you're like, oh, well, that person says, oh, well, how was it? And I'm like, oh, well, she was just talking about the gas prices and why she didn't know why we need to drive this far. And you look at me and you're like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Why in the world do you need to tell the person that I was self-disclosing to you about the gas prices and why we needed to drive up there? Why am I self-disclosing? You tell me. What's my purpose of telling that person that? Because I'm open, but I'm also trying to build connection to your expense if you're private. And that's what's upsetting you, because you're like, wait a minute, I'm telling you this in this private moment, and you're using what I told you to build connection with someone else. Exactly. And so, for example, when we're in relationships and a breakup happens, one person that goes and posts it everywhere and is trying to show everybody what's going on, that other person feels totally violated, totally attacked. And that privateness is what's going to fuel even more of the separation. Whereas if they work together to say, hey, what do we tell our friends and family about the breakup? That's more healthy than one person doing one a drastic way, and the other person doing another drastic way. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. So let's talk about the model of relational development and maintenance. So what we know is that there are ways that we kind of get together and what makes us successful, but there are also 5 stages of coming together and 5 stages of coming apart. 5 stages of coming together and 5 stages of coming apart. Yeah.
I have a question about the.
Yep. Mhm.
What's going on is, let's say we enter the house. And what's going on is one of the couples say, he or she doesn't share much thing about her or his life.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
That is,
So are you saying like you're interviewing 2 people, one person talks a lot, the other person doesn't give that much? Okay.
or maybe one of the couples say, hey, I feel he never shared his private life.
Right.
And if
Okay, well, if that happened, then part of what you would talk about is the tensions that you see because she's wanting more self-disclosure and he's more private. The advice to them would be she needs to talk to him about she needs more intimacy in a connect. It doesn't need to be physical sex. What she's wanting is more self-disclosure and more connection to him. And a great example is Pearl goes, what's going on at the shop? And he's like, the same thing that always goes on at the shop. But what she's wanting is a conversation with him. She's wanting to connect with him. And if she's not articulating that, I know it's always the same thing, but just tell me a story so I can feel connected to you right now. That's articulating what she's really looking for. She's looking for connection. And it doesn't have to be a specific story about what's going on at work, but what she's asking for is more connection with him. And the way that she feels it is through openness, through the talking. And so what might be happening in a couple that feels distant is one partner that's open is becoming more closed because they feel like the other person's not giving anything, and then they're just getting further and further apart. And that's essentially what you saw in the movie. She was trying to say to him, I want to feel closer. I don't want to end up like our daughter. And he would make jokes about whatever she was talking about. And it got so bad that she just stopped telling him that she was unhappy. And then she starts connecting with someone else. And the sad part about it is that can happen even when you're in a relationship. Remember what I said, you can have sparkle, conflict resolution, sparkle. And if you're not working on the sparkle in your relationship, someone else can start giving a sparkle to whoever you're supposed to be with. And the question is whether that person's going to be strong enough to say, hey, I want sparkle with my partner. I don't want it with this person who's asking me, how's my day? And, what are you doing this weekend? I want it with who I'm supposed to be with. Because pretty soon, what's going to happen with, let's just say that Pearl ended up with the blouse man. What's going to happen once that sparkle wears off? Are they always going to be having hot sex and dancing around in waterfalls and, driving around in an RV and, seeing the world? No, why?
her personality was different. She was like a more freedom person and she was like more.
Right. But once they start dating, let's just say that she says, okay, Leah, let's put the kids in the RV. That is not how it's going to work. She's going to have to be splitting those kids up once a week. They got to be driving the RV back from wherever they are and meeting up with the ex. That's not reality. What he was talking about is not reality. What's reality is going to feel like conflict resolution. Let's hope we get back to sparkle again. And if we're not thinking about that, then what's going to happen is now she's not interested in the blouse man anymore, and it's going to be somebody else. And so she's either going to go through a long list of men trying to find what's going to make her happy, or she's going to figure it out on her own and say, this guy complements who I am. Maybe she needs to get a job where she feels like she gets away from the family and she's able to do something for herself. That guy is not going to make her happy. She's got to make herself happy. Does that make sense? And so what I'm trying to say is you can start off at this wonderful stage of happiness, but that doesn't always mean it's going to stay there. So the other thing I want to start off with is that we don't always start off at the sparkle stage, that very beginning stage. And the great example of that is that they were about to have sex and she did not even know what. What does she ask him in the RV when they're about to make out? What is your name? She asked him what his name was. She didn't even know his name, and she's sucking face with him. And I'm not going to ask if any of you have ever been in that moment out at the club on Friday night. You're starting to make out with somebody, you're like, I don't even know this person's name. I hope that there's not an answer of yes. But if there is, it's totally normal. Not everybody starts at stage one. Not everybody's, oh, hi, my name's Robert, what's your name? Okay, and we go through those stages. Sometimes people meet at stage 3. The other thing that you need to know is you can jump stages. So for example, Marty felt like everything was perfect until he got the phone call from the mom. And he immediately left coming together, and he is automatically in coming apart. Where the wife was like, dun, 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 she's going down the stages. He jumped stages because of what was going on and what was shown to him. We don't always move it step by step, and you're going to understand what the steps are in just a second. And we can ask our relational interview couples at the end of this, if you show these stages of coming together and coming apart, you can even show them and say, which stage do you think you're in? Or you could not show them the stages and write your paper about what you think they're in. So the first stage is initiating. So if I meet a new couple, they're going to be in this stage. They just met each other. They're just getting to know each other. They just had a blind date. Hey, how you doing? I'm good, good. What's your name? I'm Robin. What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. It's fairly scripted. So at the very beginning of the semester, you heard about the couple Sally and Timmy that met in my class. And they went out for a while, and they really were a couple. They ended up going to Fresno State. And they met here, not in this classroom, but down in 72. And the meeting was kind of just like this, where they sat down. He didn't know her, she didn't know him. And he's like, hey, what's your name? They had met first in the registrar's office, signing up for classes over at the main building. And then when he came to class, he was looking for her because he thought she was cute. And then he was like, hey, I'm Johnny. And she's like, oh, hey, I'm Sally. And that was it. They just kind of started connecting. Oh, Timmy, it was Timmy. Johnny was the ex-boyfriend. And what happened in that initial handshake sometimes leads to nothing. So for example, I could meet somebody today and the initial handshake could be like, oh, hey, where'd you go to school? Fresno State. Oh, cool, what's your major? Oh, my major was comm. And now we're going to keep moving down, asking some questions. Or I might talk to them and I'm like, oh, they're a little weird. And I never talk to them again. And then we just stop at initiating, okay? But let's say that things start going well, like they were with Sally and Timmy. And let's say they go out on a date and they ask questions of each other. That's to reduce the uncertainty about the other person. So I'm trying to decide, is this a connected person or an independent person? Is this an open person or is it a private person? And I may not be asking those specific questions, but I am asking questions, well, how many people have you dated? What's your major? Tell me about your family. I'm trying to figure out, is this psycho my material or not in the conversation? And I say psycho in a loving way because we're all crazy, whether we want to admit it or not. But I'm auditioning that other person. And I'm trying to ask them questions, trying to decide if I really want to go out with them. And if it's going well, then we're going to continue down this path. So Sally and Timmy, when they went out to dinner, he tells her some things she likes to hear. She tells him some things he likes to hear. Now they're even in the next stage of intensifying. So now they're flirting. They may be even making out. He wants to spend all his time with her. She wants to spend all her time with him. They are in intensify. Now, what can happen in this stage is one person might move to this and know that they're really interested in the other person, and the other person is still in experimenting. So I might be dating someone and I may say, man, I really love spending time with you. And they go, oh, I like spending time with you too. And I'm like, well, yeah, I think I love you. And they're like, I really like you too. I like that we're spending time together. And I'm like, uh-oh, we got a problem, because I'm starting to commit myself. And I realize really quickly, they're not moving at the same speed that I am. So I back up to experimenting. And I realize, oh, wow, I'm speeding up the relationship. Some people don't notice those signs. They just keep barreling ahead. They're asking, oh, well, when are we going to move in together? And the other person's like, I'm still trying to figure out if I like you or not. And they're asking like really serious commitment questions. We should get a dog. Are you freaking kidding me? We both have different lives. We can't get a dog right now. That is intensified. Make sense? And even friends go through these stages. So I meet someone in class, we initiate, get to know each other. Oh, wow, I really like this person. You want to study together? Okay, great. Oh, let's go have lunch. We're intensifying. A friendship is developing between people. Now, in the Sally and Timmy example, they went through all of this all the way through our whole class, and then they transferred to Fresno State. And then at Fresno State, they graduated. And once they graduated, Timmy says, hey, I think it's time that, why would we go and rent 2 different apartments? I think it's time that we start thinking about what's our next life plans, and let's move in together. And so he's moving towards integrating. He wants to join their lives in the same way. And she's like, well, wow, I never really thought about that. Maybe we should do that. They're not married yet, but they start living together, trying to see how that's going to go. And one thing I will tell you, teaching relational classes and having a history of teaching this for over 20 years, whatever you believe or think about living together before you get married is your own belief, and I support whatever you want to do. But I will tell you that something gets taken away from a relationship that lives together before they're fully committed. And what I mean by that is sometimes the newness and the excitement of the new marriage is lost because you've gone through those experiences living together before you actually bond in a significant ceremony. And so you have to watch all of those things that you're doing in these processes of coming together, because potentially it could make the relationship less strong when you get married, because you're thinking, oh, well, wait a minute, where's the butterflies and all the things you're supposed to get when you're married, and I don't feel them. It's because you did them well up in front of the bonding that was going to take place. And it's not saying that that's bad, but it's making sure that you're thinking about the fact that you're doing that can create problems down the road. And so in this example of Sally and Timmy, they live together, and then he's like, we're living together, it's Christmas, I'm going to ask her to marry me. So we asked her to marry him. After they graduated in August, now they're getting married. Oh, well, he's asked her in December. They plan the wedding, and they have a ceremony, and they generate social support. So they have people that come to the wedding that they know, their family, their friends, his best men, her, bridesmaids. That's what we do. So the most symbolic gesture in our society for bonding would be what? Weddings or marriage. And it gives some significance or an establishment, but it's no different than friends saying, you're my best friend. That's a bonding. Hey, and what I'm telling that other person is, you're my person. If I'm gonna have sushi, I love love sushi, so I'm gonna ask you before I go, because I know that about my best friend. And that's showing that we're integrated and we're bonded. And so now they've lived together since August. He asked her to marry her at Christmas. They get married in the spring. And now they've been together and married for almost a year. And so they go through this critical stage of bonding and differentiating. And I want you to pay attention to that. As we go through these stages, and these are actual sociological studies about relationships, that we actually go through these stages when we are actually dating someone. And there's been someone who goes through and studies what are the patterns of our relational behaviors as human beings. And the one thing that they found that I find most interesting is the very next step after we get married is what? Look at the bottom. What comes next? But coming apart. Isn't that a little scary? Okay, wait a minute, we got married and now we're already coming apart? That seems a little weird. That's what I think. The person that loves to be connected, I'm like, oh my God, that's scary. I don't want to be breaking up the moment I get married. I want to be connected and happily ever after. I watched a lot of Disney movies that told me that's what's going to happen. And so I'm like Sally, okay? And Sally loves that connection. She just had a beautiful wedding. She had a little, nice photo collage created with all their photos. It sits on the little coffee table. And then in the, living room above the mantle, they hung, the last name, the monogram of their last name, whatever J, whatever their last name is right there above the fireplace. They've got the little bird feed, that they got thrown out. I don't know if you've ever been to one of these houses before where there's like everybody needs to know that they got married, but they got it everywhere. Like, we are together, happily ever after. Here's our wedding certificate. That's what's going on in that space. And now she is totally enthralled with the bonding. And while they're getting close to their anniversary, they have been doing this thing where once a month they meet up with a couple that they met on their honeymoon in Cancun. Just by chance, they met a couple that lives in Visalia. They live in Hanford, and every month since they came back from their honeymoon, they've met and done these nights where they celebrate their anniversary monthly until the 1 year. And so on the first month, they had dinner out. On the second month, they had dinner out. And now they're on the 10th or 11th month. It's the summer. And they have a scheduled dinner date to have dinner on their monthly anniversary date. But this is what happens. Timmy is at work and he gets a phone call. Ring. Hello? Hey, Timmy, it's Jose. What's up, man? Not much. Jose, what's going on? Timmy, I'm calling you because we are having a Texas Hold'em. I know we have not had Texas Hold'em since I can't tell you when, almost a year since you got married, but we would not have a Texas Hold'em without inviting you. I know you got that new ball and chain right now, but if you want to come Friday night, we are having it. I can't wait. I want you to be there. Oh my God, Jose, I would love to play Texas Hold'em. I miss you guys. I'm going to talk to Sally. It's going to be cool. I'll talk to her. I'll get back. I will be there. Oh, you better be there. Okay, I'll be there. Click. So he's feeling a little differentiating, wants a little space. He's getting a little strategy for privacy from the relationship. Does it mean he doesn't want to be with Sally? No. He is just looking for some kinship with his buddies. He wants a bro night in a man cave somewhere, playing some Texas Hold'em. What does Sally want? She wants to be connected. And what happens is he calls her. Ring. Hello? Hey, Sally, baby, you're so beautiful. I've been thinking about you all morning. I can't wait to see you tonight. Ooh, I can't wait. This will be wonderful tonight, baby. I have something to ask you, Sally. Yeah, Timmy, what is it? Okay, so Friday night, I just got a phone call from Jose. You know, he's our best man. He's so awesome. Oh, I love Jose. Yeah, well, he's the best man. He loves you too. And he called me to invite me to go to Texas Hold'em on Friday night with all, and guess what? All of the best men are gonna be there, okay? So we'll be able to talk about the wedding and, well, are the wives gonna be there? Well, no, he didn't say anything about that. He just said it was just gonna be the guys and we're playing Texas Hold'em and it's gonna be so much fun. So I was just calling to check in Friday night. I'm just letting you know, I'm thinking about doing that. You still there, Sally? Yeah, I'm here, Timmy. Well, what you think about Texas Hold'em on Friday night? Well, I think, have you checked the date? Yeah, baby, I checked the date. I think it's the 20th. What's the date? What's the date on Friday night? I think it's the 20th, baby. I think so. Well, Timmy, do you know what the 20th is? Oh, baby, it's our 11th month anniversary dinner with our friends. Yeah, how can I forget that? Man, yeah, I know. We're going to meet up with those people that we meet up with every month. And yeah, that's what we have on the calendar. Well, do you think we could have it on Saturday night? Timmy, is our anniversary on Saturday night? Well, no, baby, our anniversary is really not till the next month on our anniversary day, which will be our year anniversary, baby. So would it be okay just to move Friday night to Saturday night? I will call the couple and say, I'm gonna work it out. Yeah, it'll be fine. You still there, Sally? Whatever you think is best, Timmy. Click. Now we got some problems up in marriage land because Sally is thinking whatever he thinks is best is going to be being connected still. But he is moving towards differentiating. So what happens on Friday night? He moves his Texas Hold'em to Friday night, and he moves the monthly anniversary dinner to Saturday night. And when he gets home from Texas Hold'em, what happens? She is mad. Now, she hasn't really talked to him since that phone call. She's been kind of quiet, but he's like, look, I got to let her work through this. And they move into circumscribing. And circumscribing is where the communication between the two of them begins to decrease, the quality and the quantity. So when she talks to him, if she talks to him, it is not nice. And he gets angry because of this. I had one student, they had to list on the exam the stages of coming apart, and they listed it as circumcising. She doesn't circumcise him, so I thought that was funny, but she does circumscribe, meaning that she demeans the relationship. So if he's like, hey, baby, I had a good time at Texas Hold'em. All right. Or she might cuss him out for going. But even better, to really let him know she's mad, she's going to feel stuck and she's going to jump right over this and she's going to go to avoid it. So when he gets home from Texas Hold'em, she's in another bedroom sleeping. She's not in their bedroom. She's with the golden retriever in the guest bedroom. So he walks in, comes home from Texas Hold'em, probably had a few. He lays down. Hey, baby, where you at? And now he's like, are you freaking kidding me? She is still this mad. She's sleeping in the other room. It's ridiculous. She could just stay there. And so now they're both in avoiding. He's doing his thing. She's doing her thing. And the more that this goes on and nobody forces them to talk about it, what is likely to happen? If you don't think I have not met with couples that are about to divorce over stupid stuff like this, you're out of your mind. I've had a couple that wanted divorce about the green trash can before. Was it really about the green trash can though? No, we'll talk about that in a few weeks. But it was not about the green trash can. Is she really mad about Texas Hold'em? What's she really mad about? Because she wants still to be in bonding and she doesn't like that he's differentiated. And is there a possibility that if she's not willing to dance in that connectedness versus autonomy, she could run him off? Yes. There could be a potential breakup over the fact that he feels smothered or that she doesn't feel like she's the top priority. Anybody in here willing to say that he should have canceled Texas Hold'em and went on his 11th month anniversary? Anybody willing to say that they think he should? Okay. There are going to be people that want to do the bonding. I would even say, why can't you call your buddy and say, can we do Texas Hold'em on Saturday night? Who else has had that anniversary? I'll buy all the drinks, okay? Can we just move it to save my marriage to Saturday night? But he's not thinking that. He's thinking about, oh man, I have missed my friends so much. I got to get me some Texas Hold'em. Okay, what I got to do? And so they're over and over and over moving towards avoiding. And the sad part about this is I had a student years ago who left and went to the Bay Area. She was in my class in Visalia. She was an early elementary major. She's working now in the East Bay as a nanny. And she finds out that the couple that she's babysitting for have been sleeping in separate bedrooms for 12 years. They're still married, but they have different lives. They think the kids don't know. And they're staying together for what? The kids. And when the kids graduate, that's when they're going to divorce. You think those kids don't know? They know. And what are they learning about conflict? When things get bad, just avoid it. Don't talk about it. The moment you're with someone and they go sleep in the other room, you move wherever they are. Oh, you want to sleep in the guest room tonight? Okay. Oh, we'll move in the guest room tonight. Oh, you want to sleep on the couch? It's small, but okay. Because you're not sleeping where I'm sleeping. We're going to talk about this. We are not going to bed angry. We are going to resolve through, and if we can't talk about it tonight, we'll talk about it tomorrow, but I'll sleep right here, right where you are. Never give up your bed, because that's starting avoidance. And I bet you right now, if I said, raise your hand, if one of your parents sleeps somewhere else, some of you will raise your hand. Terminating. So some people are moving towards termination. And if they don't work it out, it is going to lead to divorce. Luckily, and this was a true story about Texas Hold'em, Sally went and stayed with her mom the second night. And on the second night, her mother told her she better go home. That her dad has golfing and all kinds of other things that he does. And she does that because they need space. That they're going to drive each other nuts if they just spend every moment together. He went back to his Texas Hold'em buddies on the night that she went to her mom's house on that Saturday night. And his buddies told him, man, that girl's hot. You better work that stuff out. You should have told us. You could have brought her. She could have sat over there in the corner while we played Texas Hold'em. That's not what she wanted to do, but that was their advice. Sometimes we have people in the relationship that will give us those messages supporting our bonding and tell us to get it together. Other times, though, what could we have? I have sat with couples where the in-law is not very excited about the relationship. And they are instigating the couple breaking up because they don't like so-and-so. Or they have a friend that really likes Timmy single, so he's going to push to get Timmy single because he wants his friend back. And all of that could lead towards termination. But luckily, Sally and Timmy had people telling them what? Work it out. And that led them back to this stage over here. Because fighting generally leads to intensifying. We fight to make up. And they were back in the flirting and the affection. And are they going to find themselves going back and forth between these two things over and over? Yes. sparkle, conflict, resolution, sparkle, sparkle, conflict, resolution, sparkle. Over and over and over for the rest of their lives. Okay, so when you do your relational interviews, these are things that you can be thinking about. But don't only think about it for your relational interview, think about for your own relationships. What type of relationship do I want? Am I gonna manage it with someone or am I gonna be batting heads with someone? You have no class next Wednesday, but I will be posting information because traditionally we would have class on Monday and Wednesday. So on Monday, I will still send out an announcement. It will not be an assignment other than your relational interview, but you should be working on that, all right? Any questions? Okay, I'll see you guys later. Any questions? Have a good Thanksgiving. Autonomy. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Yeah.
I said the last class, like,
Oh, no worries. Yeah, any of people.
I was doing the other, course there, it was maybe math, so take me a
Long time, yeah.
more time. And I just check, midnight, if I can still do it. I
Oh, good.
already did.
Yeah, good.
Thank you for
You're
that
welcome. Yes,
extra time.
perfect. Yeah, you're fine. Have a good day.
You too.
Hey, baby, did you call American Home Shield?
Did I call and make what?
Did you make any appointment with American Home Shield for an electrical?
No.
Okay. I just got a message that there was an appointment made for an electrical, it says your electrical service request is assigned to COM Services.
I have no idea.
Okay,
The guy that did the plumbing thing, I still haven't heard back from him.
okay. All right, yeah, I'll ask him what's going on. All
Okay.
right, thanks.